Hey guys, in the previous video, we saw that Pastry managed to save his friends and also made his first apple pie. Today, we'll see more of this amazing story, but before that, please give that like and subscribe, it really helps me out, okay? Let's get to the recap. Today's video starts with Pastry's father saying they don't have any money and need resources to rebuild the villages that were damaged. They also need food to sustain the people while they rebuild. He mentions that if they could catch the bandit leader who escaped, they could get at least 200 gold coins for him. He also says that the remaining ruffians are not even worth 5 coins. They try to figure out a way to get money and start brainstorming. Later, Pastry plays with his friends and shares the money problem with them. Pastry asks how Lumi's wound is, and she says she's doing well, just feels a bit of pain. Mark suggests she take it easy, and at that moment, Pastry laughs, saying they really make a nice couple. This makes Mark angry, and he says this joke isn't funny. Then, Mark admiringly comments on Pastry's magic and asks him to teach them how to use it. First, Pastry gives them a demonstration. He asks the two of them to draw something they like on the ground. After they draw, Pastry uses his rewriting magic to create a copy of the drawings and transfer them onto their skin, creating a sort of magic tattoo. Then, Lumi asks him if he can do the opposite. Instead of copying a drawing onto someone, could he copy another person or object to create something like a portrait? Pastry finds this idea amazing and wondered why he had never thought of it. He thanks Lumi for the idea and runs off excitedly, certainly thinking of a way to make money. While his father was talking to his mother, Pastry returns with a piece of wood and says he has an idea on how they can make money. His father asks what the plan is, and Pastry asks if he remembers the attempts to arrange a marriage for Josie, his sister. His father remembers, but doesn't understand how they would make money with it. Pastry explains that thanks to his teleportation ability, he was able to take her to various places to present her. However, few people have this ability since they can't use magic. This is where Pastry's idea comes in. Pastry asks how best to introduce a daughter if they want to arrange a marriage for her. His father suggests that the most effective way is to have her participate in a royal ball in the capital, but transportation is dangerous and costs a lot of money. Pastry suggests that if they sold something like that, and shows them the piece of wood, with his mother on it. He puts magic into the board, and his mother's image appears in detail, almost like a photograph. They are all impressed, and Pastry says his idea is to sell photos of the girls for their introduction without them being present. This way, they could save a lot of money for the parents of the girls, and they would charge a much lower price than the expensive photographs in that world. His father finds the idea incredible and says it could work. The assistant mentions that people could discover Pastry's magic this way, but Pastry says they can't hide his magic forever, and he can claim that his magic is only used to create photographs. His father agrees and goes back to talking to his assistant. Meanwhile, Pastry's mother comes over quietly and asks if he can remove a wrinkle she saw in the photo. Some time later, Pastry and his father go to the Countess Reedy's castle to seek a reward for dealing with the bandits she let escape. They are received by the guards and are soon admitted. The Countess from above begins mockingly, asking if they came to reprimand her for failing to deal with the bandit threat. Her assistant tells her not to fear the reprimand of any nobleman. She agrees and says she will just flatter him and send them away. Then, Pastry and his father arrive in the room where she is. She greets them and says it's a pleasure to receive Lord Morton and his son. She introduces herself as Countess Reedy's. Pastry's father returns the pleasantries and expresses his gratitude for having a moment with the Countess. She talks about Pastry and comments on his charm. Then, she invites them to have tea. Pastry is impressed with all the sweets he sees on that table and gets really excited. The Countess says they prepared the best quality sweets and honey tea for their visit. Pastry's father thanks her and mentions that her teas are well known even in the royal capital. He takes a sip and says it's really delicious, and then Pastry picks up a cookie and takes a bite. The Countess watches him, expecting him to be delighted, but instead, the boy makes a dissatisfied face. Thinking to herself, she mentions that usually, children get excited to eat her sweets, and she doesn't understand why Pastry is making such a face. Then he drinks the tea, and his expression isn't much better. After that, the Countess mentions that his father's farms stand out even in such arid lands. Pastry's father says that it's all thanks to taking his son's advice, but the Countess doesn't believe him and calls him humble. Then she finally speaks to Pastry and comments that he must be proud to have a father like his. Pastry seizes this opportunity and agrees, saying he is very proud of his father. He then becomes serious and mentions that the estate his father worked so hard to build recently suffered a terrible attack. He explains that they were attacked by hundreds of bandits, and even children like him were forced to take up arms and fight. The Countess, thinking to herself, admits she never thought the boy would bring up such a topic. She tells him that it's splendid to see him assuming the responsibilities of nobility at such a young age. Pastry continues, saying that when they interrogated the bandits, they claimed to have come from the region of Retesvale, which is the Countess's territory, and she should have dealt with them. The Countess attempts to play dumb and asks if this is true. Pastry then plays his final card. He has a sword he took from the bandits, which belongs to the Countess's army and was likely taken from a night when the bandits passed through. Pastry mentions that if she can't remember, that's fine, and he'll hand the bandits over directly to the royal capital, where an official investigation will likely reveal that the Countess was responsible for all the damage. Pastry puts pressure on her, and she has no choice but to negotiate a generous reward for them. The Countess starts offering 100 gold coins, but Pastry refuses immediately, saying he wants a bit more. She offers 130, and he rejects it right away, until she offers 150, and finally, he accepts. The Countess, thinking to herself, remarks that this kid is not normal. Usually, parents handle negotiations in such situations, and she starts to believe that their estate's success really stems from the boy. Pastry counts the coins and tells his father they have exactly 150 coins. They thank her, and Pastry apologizes for his impudent remarks, saying it was necessary. She says he hasn't introduced himself yet, and Pastry promptly introduces himself and mentions that it was a pleasure to meet her. She asks if she can ask him a question. Pastry confirms, and she asks what he thought of the tea, as he made a disapproving face when he first tried it. Pastry says there's no problem with the tea, it was very good. However, he adds that the cookies weren't a good match since they were too sweet and overpowered the tea's flavor. He advises her to pair the tea with lighter sweets to enhance the tea's flavor even more. She compliments his refined palate and is astonished by everything he said. Pastry's father gives him a light cuff on the head and apologizes for his son's impudence. Pastry quickly apologizes to her and, as a gesture of apology, takes out a small handkerchief and uses his magic to create a portrait of the Countess. She is very surprised and says it's wonderful. What happens next, we'll discover together in the next video. Did you enjoy today's episode? Then don't waste any time and give that like and subscribe, as it directly supports our work. And as always, for those who are truly dedicated and watch until the end, I've left an amazing video here. It tells the story of Lucille, a healer who, after falling into a pit on Earth, found himself in a world of fantasy and magic. Click on the screen and check it out. Sound good? Until next time, farewell.